Now, another big bubble position, defensive line. And the guys who are on the bubble, it's insane to think that they're on the bubble. Going into last season, I wouldn't have thought it. But Drake Jackson had a disappointing 2023 season. I don't think there's any other way to describe it. And it's not like he didn't get started in the right direction. I mean, there was all the conversation about him, working out and lifting more weights than he ever lifted. It actually sounded like he hadn't been in a weight room much in his whole life. But he was getting stronger, and he looked bigger, and that's all good news. That's what you want. Felt like he was putting in the work. He was putting in the time to be that premier pass rusher opposite of Nick Bosa. Get to the Steelers, he gets 3 sacks. You're like, hey, here we go. Here we go. Drake Jackson, going to be a guy. And then Drake Jackson slowly started to fall off. His production slipped. The plays that he was making didn't work out as much. He wasn't able to set the edge in the run game like we thought he was going to be able to. Thought there was going to be improvements. And now we're coming to a point where Drake Jackson's on the bubble. Coming off a season-ending injury, and reports are right now he's not full go. So we get to training camp. There's people competing for his position. And the 49ers are not going to sit back and wait for Drake Jackson to get ready. Now, with some of the rules and the way that it goes now, you can have players on the PUP list, on the IR, and they can get to the season. You can bring them back and be a part of the 53. So it doesn't mean they would cut him for injury reasons. But I think there's a real conversation if he's good enough to make this roster. You have guys ahead of him that are really good. Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos. That's 3 right there. Then you've got Drake Jackson in a battle with another bubble player in Robert Beal. And I didn't really want to put Robert Beal on the bubble, but I'm talking about one roster spot that's going to be battled by a few different guys. And I think there's levels to this. I think Robert Beal and Drake Jackson are on the same level. Robert Beal came in last year, only played 67 snaps. We haven't really got a good look on him. He looked like he was doing a pretty good job, got a sack, set the edge pretty good against the run. I think they have a good feel for him. They like his speed. They like his athleticism. Same as Drake Jackson. But he's a lot bigger. He's a lot more put together. He's a little bit older. So he's more progressed. So it's an interesting dynamic between the two of them. I think the 49ers would ultimately like to keep both. But if Drake Jackson doesn't make himself available or he doesn't show up and play the way that they feel he's supposed to, they need production from that 4th or 5th defensive end. Could they then look at one of the guys that's behind right now, Alex Barrett, Austin Bryant? Could those guys potentially get a look? Could they look around the scrap heap and find another player? Could they wait and get someone? Well, it all depends on what they want to do at defensive tackle. If the 49ers don't keep 5 defensive tackles the way they did last year, then potentially they could carry 5 defensive ends. In that case, Beal and Drake Jackson could make this roster. But if they decide they can only keep 4 defensive ends, one of them is going to be gone. And that puts both of them on the bubble. And Beal Jr., it's tough for him to be on the bubble because he dealt with some injuries early. He hasn't really had any opportunity to develop into the player that they're hoping he could be. But Drake Jackson's going into year 3. Beal's going to year 2. More contractual time with the club if they decide to keep you. But they also have more time invested in Drake Jackson. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch during the offseason. It's going to be interesting to watch in training camp what Drake Jackson looks like, how he's handling himself, how healthy he looks, how much stronger he's gotten. It's going to be important. And for Robert Beal Jr., are you finally going to be dynamic when it comes to rushing the passer? I get it. You're a rookie, and that's okay. Like, I have nothing bad to say about Robert Beal and his development, but they brought him here for GTFO, to get off the ball, get in the backfield, and wreak havoc. So if he can show that he can do that, he's going to make this football team. There's elite intangibles with him, with that speed-size combination. He's got the ability to be something special. Of course, he has to go out there and show it. Now, he's had less opportunity to do so than Drake Jackson. The 49ers have 2 young pass rushers and 2 young edge defenders that, if they develop the right way, could help your team. But we know the 49ers aren't counting on that. You go out and you sign 2 free agent edge defenders, you're making sure you insulated yourself. You're making sure those guys at the back end are nothing more than depth pieces. You're not counting on them for significant snaps. Well, at least not one of them. One of them is going to step into a role of going in there in that second wave of defensive line. So it's going to be fun. One of those two guys potentially makes the team. Maybe both do. If you're wanting to know what I think about it, head on over to Patreon. I've been putting out my early 53-man roster predictions. This is pre-training camp roster predictions. And I talk all about this and who I think is going to make the team and who I don't. I broke it up into a series. So there's multiple episodes. It's going to end up being 6 episodes breaking down each position and then or position group. And then, of course, I'm going to go through the practice squad as well. So that's always available over on Patreon if you want to check that out.